I feel like an airhead.
Great intro, Mao. We're rolling.
Hey everyone, welcome to WOW, Woes of Womanhood.
So today we're going to be talking about living with a couple because as you may or may not know, of course, Mao and I live together, but we also live with a very special man that is my boyfriend, Eric.
I got nervous when you said we live with a special man because I was like, who is this intruder?
So Mao, today's topic is how you like living with a man.
I think there is pros and cons of living with a couple, and I would love to deep dive into the third person perspective versus Melody's couple perspective.
My boyfriend lived in the city while I was still living at home in the South Bay. Mao was living in Japan at the time, so she was not even near the vicinity. I was about to graduate from my MBA, and I was really debating whether or not I wanted to move to the city or stay at home. So at this point, my boyfriend had just upgraded from living in a studio to a one-bedroom because I was visiting all the time. So he's like, oh, I have more space, so you can come stay with me. And I, at this point, wasn't even planning on moving to the city at all. But then Mao had been interviewing different jobs, and her intent was to move back to the US. And she ended up landing a job in San Francisco. So I was like, oh, Mao, what if we lived together? And at first I thought she didn't want to live with me, but then I brought it up. And do you remember the conversation?
No.
You don't?
What was the conversation?
Like, do you want to be roommates type of thing? I feel
You
like
didn't never even ask me.
Excuse. I did ask you.
You did?
I literally was like, oh, do you want to be roommates? And then you were like, oh yeah, that may work. By the time you weren't sure if you were gonna like actually be in San Francisco.
This was true. Well, the whole thing was that I didn't even have a job yet, and I was interviewing, but I didn't even know if I was gonna get that job. So what I was gonna do is go to my best friend's house in Arizona and then stay for a while, feel out the job market there, job market in California, just figure myself out. But luckily I got a job in California as soon as I booked my plane tickets to Arizona or around that time. So then I was like, oh my God, everything's just laying out perfectly. So that's why when Melody approached me initially, I just didn't have like a complete plan, and I didn't want to commit and make her find a house already and like start doing all this thing because I couldn't commit.
And it kind of worked out though, because I wasn't on any rush timeline or anything. I was just like, oh, if you end up coming here, then I'll end up moving with you.
Yes.
So anyways, moral of the story, we ended up moving in together in San Francisco. My boyfriend got slightly triggered by that because he was like, I just upgraded my apartment and now we literally lived like maybe a 12-minute walk from each other.
Oh, I didn't know he was irritated.
I think he's mentioned that multiple times before.
That he was irritated?
He was irritated because he had switched his apartment to get a bigger apartment, and he was paying $2,500 in rent, which was a lot more compared to his last apartment. So he was like,
ouch,
I just upgraded this place for you to have space to be here, and then you moved into your own place. And then at that point, I was never going there. He was coming to our place.
Oh my God, yeah, that was crazy. Because our little apartment was extremely small, so I was like, oh, holy We were on top of each other.
But like in a hot way.
Huh? Like actually hot.
And hot.
Okay, fast forward.
Anyways, after a year of Mao and I living together, or nearing the end of our 1-year lease, my boyfriend was like, if we're not planning on living together anytime soon, that's kind of a red flag for me. At the same time, Mao had gotten a new job. She needed to commute to the East Bay, so we needed to be closer to the ferry building for her. So a lot of moving parts kind of at the same time. Like my boyfriend being like, are we gonna move in together? Mao switching jobs, so we needed to switch a place anyway. So because of that, we ended up then having a group discussion around if it made sense for all of us to live together.
Initially, there was questions that had to be addressed, as in, what if you guys break up? Like what happens to who's gonna pay rent for the rest of the time, or who's going to move out, like cleaning duties and keeping tidying around the apartment. What's the job? Because me and Melody already had this contract in our previous place, so with a new person we wanted to like reshuffle the duties.
I think we were very intentional and went about this in a very mature way. We didn't just jump into it like we can potentially save money or get a nicer place if we all live together. It was very intentional. I was like, Mao, are you comfortable living with a couple? Like we discussed a lot of things about giving each other personal space and all that.
Yes, I needed the rooms to be completely away from each other. We could not have a wall to just separate us because of different issues. So that was one thing. Also, the apartment had to be big enough so we could have like an office. Some of us wanted a balcony. We just wanted our own space.
Yeah, we all had very specific preferences around what we were looking for. Like, I wanted a lot of natural light. Eric wanted a balcony. You wanted separate space in the room. So we had a list of criteria of what we were looking for. Originally, we were even looking for a 3-bedroom, so there would be like an extra office space. We ended up finding this place, which felt like it was big enough and had enough common areas in our building as well that it ended up making sense. But that was like our criteria. Like, we had discussed all of that. We've discussed the if we break up situation. We discussed the chore situation, like all of that before going into it.
Which made everything much more smoother. And also because he was at our apartment every day in our previous apartment, it just felt actually like not a weird transition. It just felt very smooth, normal. There was no disturbances. So it was pretty comfortable.
Even in the way that we did our move in the furniture that we bought for this place, essentially everything under $100 we just split evenly. Like, we just added it all up and split it evenly. Anything over $100 we attributed to people's like names, so they would be the ones to be essentially responsible for that if we were to move out, so we could sell it to the other person or be responsible for having to sell it.
Correct.
So now we're at this point, we're all living together, great and dandy, but I want to hear from you, Mao. So far, what have been the pros and cons of living with a couple?
So give 2 pros and 2 cons. Starting with the con, because I love to end with a positive. One thing would be that in the beginning, I didn't know that 2 of them were one of me. So what does that even mean? Is that Nespresso pods. So if we were to buy Nespresso pods, I have to count Melody and Eric as one entity and me as another entity. So it's not going to switch between 3 people. I didn't understand this at first, but then when I brought it up, they're like, oh wait, no, it should be 3 people. So then we changed it up. But a lot of the times, even the chore split up, the cleaning, the whatever, they count as one entity.
So let me clarify what you mean by we count as one entity. Technically, in an apartment, if we were 3 random roommates, it would be everyone has their like assigned stuff that they do and things that they buy, and they're separated. But because Eric and I are in a couple, for example, groceries, Eric will buy all of my groceries. Or if we're cleaning, Eric will do the cleaning, or I will do the cleaning. Like, we kind of interchange and take each other's responsibility a lot of times. So it's not like 1, 2, 3. Like, sometimes it's like 1, 2, 2, 1,
right,
3, 1, you know, it kind of, yeah.
So why that is a negative, it also moves into a positive at the end of the day. But let's say Melody won't do the dishes because it's Eric's thing to do the dishes. Like, I can't get mad at Melody for not doing her dishes because the other part of her full will clean up the dishes at the end of the day. Like, I just have to be mindful that they work as a team rather than individual separate people. But it's actually a positive because they have adopted parts of my chores for themselves as well, because there's 2 people working together. So I have 1 or 2 dishes in the dishwasher, then they'll clean it for me, which is, I love that. Thank you. And even Costco trips that they go on, then I can just be a +1 and get a few items when they do a run together. Obviously I pay back. There is pros from that, but it was an adjustment.
So that was 1 con and 1 pro.
Another con is the sorry, I just get a little uncomfortable talking about this topic. That's why I became a 14-year-old boy. But another con is at times in the public areas, they are, you know, doing their own thing together, pretty much like skin on skin contact. Then I just feel a little bit uncomfortable and I have to remove myself, or like I turn around, you know, just try and be mindful to give them their space. But sometimes it gets to the point of like, whoa, I really don't know how to react to this. And then they play into that. So then I just get even more uncomfortable and I have to shimmy away into my room.
Okay, let me just
why
disclaim.
are you trying to defend
I'm
yourself?
trying to disclaim. I'm not defending. I'm just disclaiming. I think, can I just speak to your persona a little bit? I want them to get to know you a little bit better, so I want to say. Mao, in general, is uncomfortable with physical touch and, like, intimacy. She never really grew up with her parents being, like, very intimate or, like, ever, like, touching or kissing. So I think that's very foreign to her. So even if we're, like, hugging or, like, we kiss, or I'm like sitting next to him or like cuddling on him. It's a lot of intimacy for Mao.
Well, I would like to know, and I would love for you guys to comment below, if someone was laying on top of each other on a sofa in the common room, like, would you feel comfortable just, laying out on the side or just like talking to them? Please answer that.
Well, we're just laying next to each other. Yeah, we're in physical contact, but it's not like, okay, please, audience, share your thoughts.
So the last pro I want to talk about is there's always someone at the house. I come back to a familial place, a familia.
Right.
So it's always warm, it's always safe, it's always comfortable. There's someone there. There's someone that will talk to me after work or after working out, or just, I just know I'm coming back to a house full of people, or maybe one person, I don't know, but very nice to know that you do come back to someone.
Yeah, that is fun. And we always get excited when Mao comes back too, because from the couple POV, I think a big pro for me is that obviously I'm living with my best friend and my boyfriend, so I kind of get the best of both worlds, where I get to have that time with my boyfriend and build that intimate relationship, but then I get this deep like girlhood friendship that he can never provide me. Like, they give you different things, right? So it's like I could talk deep topics with Mao for hours. Eric's like not that way. But obviously I get much more intimate with him at like an emotional level than I may with Mao. So yeah, I think there's a lot of pros for me in having both. It really fills my cup and makes me feel very fulfilled. So yeah, I love having you around.
Thank you. What's your con?
My con. The only con I can think of is generally with living with any roommate is that obviously you're sharing that space with someone else. So I can't just invite people over to the house without being considerate of Mao, because it's not only me and Eric's space, it's also Mao's space. So I have like family come over a lot and things like that. So it is impacting Mao's common area space, which I have to be mindful of. Obviously, Eric and I are an entity. So my family is also his family. But for Mao, it is like, obviously they're not strangers to her, but it's like external people coming into her space that she wasn't necessarily the one to invite. So that's any roommate situation. And thankfully Mao's like very close to a lot of my friends and family, but it is just something to consider of when you're living with anyone, you obviously have to be mindful of their space, their things, all that. I would say that's a pro and a con from a couple's standpoint, but also something that has been great for both of us is that we've been able to get the most out of our budget because we have 3 people living in a 2-bedroom. So obviously we get more bang for our buck, and I think that's the main reason why we've been able to afford living in a nicer space with a lot of amenities and things like that. So that's been a great pro, is we can go further with our budget. Like, we're paying less here than we were at our last apartment, and our last apartment was half the size and didn't have any amenities, not even parking. So yeah, I think we're definitely getting a good deal.
I totally agree. I just remembered my one more con.
Okay, go ahead.
It might not be an actual con, but the perception of other people when I tell them I live with a couple, it's very unique to a single person experience within that renting dynamic, that people are like, oh my gosh, how is that? They're kind of concerned for me. They think I'm constantly third wheeling. They don't know how my love life is developing when I'm living with a couple. And I think that is true. Like, whenever I do bring someone, a prospective someone here, like, I have to explain, oh yeah, I live with a couple. If Melody's out of the house and it's just her boyfriend, I like try to be like, oh, don't mind him, like whatever. But
like, there's another man in the house.
But then people are like, wait, who is that? And I'm like, oh yeah, whatever. And if I don't explain the situation, things can get misinterpreted. I have to be very careful.
I think that was a one-off situation. You didn't even explain who he was. You were just like,
yeah, because the door was open. If the door is shut, I never usually explain to people if they're like complete strangers. Not that I bring strangers into the house.
It's interesting. I totally get that POV, and I also think from a couple perspective, I don't think I've ever gotten that like negative of a reaction, but I'm like, oh, I live with my boyfriend and my best friend, and people are like, oh, like, it's just a unique situation that I think people are like, oh, they don't think of it negatively, but they're like, why don't you just live with your boyfriend type of thing. I don't know. That kind of feels like the tone.
Yeah, I get that.
But I'm like, wait, but I kind of like living with both of them.
Yeah. It's a fun time. You can only do this when you're young.
Yeah. I feel sad thinking about the day that I'm not living with Mao. And I'm like, that's gonna be so sad, bro. And then I'm like, I'm sure I'll enjoy my life with Eric, but it's just such a different vibe when it's just you and your partner versus like you and your friends. When we're all together, it just feels, obviously Eric is my boyfriend, but he's also my friend. And I feel like when we're around Mao, it's like we're all just like friends hanging out and it's super fun. Like he's one of the girls.
Yeah. Also, it's a very unique relationship that we have because we all have pretty deep trust and we know each other on a very personal and deep and emotional level. I just feel very safe. But if it was someone else other than Eric, I don't know if it will be the same dynamics. Our personalities did all mesh very well, and then because Melody and I knew each other for very long, we have a sense of trust. I mean, I don't think it'll work out for everyone, but it is something you can try out.
I think that is a good point. I don't know if this would work out for everyone, and that's because, you know, different personalities at play can make things more complicated or less complicated.
Especially if they're in a relationship, that relationship dynamic and your friendship dynamics might differ, and you might feel very uncomfortable. You'll be like, why are you acting like that or something? But that has never happened with us.
Yeah, I think overall I love living with Eric and Mao, and I would highly recommend it if you feel close enough. Have the conversation and don't shy away from getting into the details. Be open, like genuinely ask them. Like, I'm not going to be hurt if you, like when I asked Mao, I'm like, oh, how do you feel about living with a couple? If she genuinely was like, I don't feel comfortable, I would have totally respected that. Like, it's not a reflection of me or my relationship. It's just a boundary that some people have, and that's totally understandable.
Well, I think that was a great episode, Melody.
Yeah, it was great learning more about how you feel living with us.
You learned something new from that?
I didn't learn anything new, but I just think we're one big happy family.
We're actually one entity, not
We've actually morphed into one entity.
Yeah, it's just one entity.
Let us know if you're single, if you would ever live with a couple, and if you were in a relationship, if you would ever live with a single person who is your best friend. Let us know. And we'll see you next time. Not next Thursday, but the Thursday after that.
Bye!